Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today we are having a little reading wrap up for the last 2 months. So for May and June, because somehow this year is running by already. This time I have 5 titles on my list. So I think this might be short and sweet. The first book that I read, not this month but last month, was The Secret Dream World of a Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. It's part of a whole series of books, but I only read the first one. It's a romantic comedy about a 20-something, I think she's 26 more or less, a woman named Rebecca, and about her life. She works as a journalist for a finance magazine, but she's also a shopaholic, so she shops way more than she can afford. She has constantly problems to pay for her bills, and that's kind of like an underlying irony in the book. And of course we also have a romantic interest in this book. Kind of like a not haters to lovers kind of thing, but in the beginning she thinks the guy is arrogant and not very nice, and towards the end she might think otherwise. I think the series is quite known. I had heard of it before, but I had never read it, partly because I don't like to shop myself, so I thought this book might not be interesting for me. But anyway, I was looking for a sweet and romantic kind of read, just something to relax. And yeah, the book did exactly what I asked it to, and it was nice. The second book that I finished reading was The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I made an individual video about this book, so I won't talk much about it here. It is about a Korean woman who one day, or rather one night, decides that she doesn't want to eat meat anymore, and about the repercussions that this decision has for her life and the life for the people around her. And the book is told by, or through the eyes of her husband, her brother-in-law and her big sister. It is quite weird, it is quite bleak, gotta say, but it was very impressive and I absolutely enjoyed reading it, although it was not comfortable to read it. It wasn't the most comfortable reading experience, but I would absolutely recommend this book because it is very thought-provoking, and it's also beautifully written. So yeah, but it's a wild ride. I won't say more. As I said, if you want, you can also watch my video on this novel alone. After that, or well, in between everything that I was reading, but before finishing the last 2 books, I read the first 8 volumes of Hosingi by Ryo Fujisaki, a manga series from the early 2000s. And this is an adaptation of the creation of the gods, or the investiture of the gods, a Chinese classic, well, novel, epic, I'm not sure. This is about a, well, you cannot really say boy because he's over 60, I think. It's about Taikobo, he's the protagonist, and he has the mission to seal the souls of 365 godly, let's say godly creatures, and also to overthrow the, let's say, goddess Daki. She's on the 2nd volume, that's her, who has bewitched the king of China at the time, King Chu, in this manga. And yeah, Taikobo is charged to overthrow her and to seal the souls of, I think, 365 of those godlike beings. They are called Sennin in this manga. And yeah, it's basically about how Taikobo makes alliances, how he tries to fulfill his task. I'm not even halfway through now with 8 volumes in, but the story is quite vast. I think I will make at least one video just about this, probably more than one, because it's a quite rich story, and it's very funny. It's also very dramatic. So for an action comedy, I'm anticipating too many tears, because I also remember how much I cried the first time around. I think going much further into the story would make this very confusing, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. After that, I read Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. This was my pick for stop number 6 on my literary world travel from the library, which is Buenos Aires. And yeah, this is a collection of short fiction. I think the stories range from between like 12 until like 30 pages. And most of the stories are either set in Buenos Aires or near Buenos Aires, and a lot of them have nightmarish qualities to them. Sometimes you're not sure. The things that I read now, did they happen, did they not happen? Because there's some kind of uncertainty about that. A lot of them also have magical realism qualities, but I guess Nightmare Edition. And the stories are kind of about the city, about the people in the city, about the secrets of the city, and I would almost say about its soul. It's very interesting. Some of the stories are very moving, and I feel like they give you a glimpse into, I don't know, into the soul of Buenos Aires, maybe. Maybe that's corny, but I'm very impressed by the stories that I've read. I would absolutely recommend reading this. This was I think it was the first book by Mariana Enriquez that was translated into English, but it was her second book that she wrote. Her first book, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, has also been translated. I haven't read it yet, but I think I will, because I'm absolutely enjoying this. So yeah, and it's been a while since I've read short stories or short fiction, and I'm really liking it. And the last book that I want to talk about today is inside of this book. Those are the collected works of Hermann Hesse. And it is Demian, which I have just finished this afternoon. Demian is kind of a coming-of-age kind of story. It's about Emil Sinclair and his journey to himself. It starts when he's about 10 or 12, and it stops when he's about, I think, 20. And yeah, Emil kind of divides the world into good and evil, or into the light world and the dark world. And then he meets Max Demian, who goes to the same school as Emil. And Demian kind of shows Sinclair that, or Emil, that the way he divides the world into good and evil doesn't really work this way. And through the friendship slash kind of love to Demian, Emil finds the way to himself and learns to get to know himself, to accept himself, etc. It's a quite short book. I think it had like 150 pages. I needed quite some time to read through it, because I started reading it in bed, and then I realized this is I'm thinking too much while reading it in bed, so I'm thinking too much to fall asleep. And yeah, I think the most immediate feeling that I have about Demian is how beautifully it is written. I like Hermann Hesse's style of writing. I have only read one other book by him, and that was the Steppenwolf, which I read in university, but I enjoyed it so much because it's just written so beautifully. And the same goes for Demian. It was a joy to read it. I'm not sure whether I understood everything that was in there, and all of the philosophical kind of conversations that Demian and Emil have, but nonetheless it was beautiful to read it, and I was quite touched by the end of the book, and that was kind of unforeseen for me. Gotta say, like the last page hit me in a way. And I also want to read another book by Hermann Hesse that's in here, and that is Siddhartha, because I haven't read this either. So probably in the next video I'll also still have this book on me. That was my reading wrap up for the last 2 months. I'm looking forward to what summer will bring. Maybe some relaxing, fun reads. I would hope for that, because it's summer, although today it looks like autumn out there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little wrap up, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Bye!